Dickie Dread, New Age Travellers, A History, 1960 to 1990. Chapter 6, The Aftermath. It was far from over. After the last baton was lowered and the final handcuffs clicked shut, the beanfield fell quiet. But the ordeal for hundreds of arrested travellers had only just begun. They were loaded into police vans, coaches and riot wagons, often crammed in without water, food or even access to toilets. Some were still bleeding. Many were in shock. A few had children clinging to them, too afraid to cry. There were people with broken fingers, cracked ribs, and in one case a miscarriage, all denied immediate medical care. The vans rolled out across the country. Wiltshire's small town stations were overwhelmed. Many arrestees were held in makeshift overflow cells, some even locked in station garages, others left handcuffed in corridors or seated on concrete floors with no blankets. One man recalled, "They didn't know where to put us. We were everywhere. Hallways, interview rooms. I didn't sleep. I don't think anyone did." Detainees were denied access to legal counsel for hours, sometimes days. Some were denied medication or contact with their children. Women were held in men's holding areas and several reported being verbally harassed by male officers. Hot drinks or food were not provided for more than 12 hours in many cases. One young woman, picked up while trying to collect her toddler, was left in a bloodied shirt for the entire night. Despite the scale of the arrest, very few were charged. The arrests were a tactic to break the momentum, scatter the community and make it impossible to regroup. When some were finally allowed to make a phone call, they had no idea where their vehicles were, or even which police station they'd been brought to. One solicitor said trying to locate clients that night was like chasing ghosts for a system that had shut its doors. People who were released were often dropped miles from their vehicles in the early hours, without belongings or shoes, and told to walk. For many, the worst part wasn't the beatings, it was the treatment after. The silence, the mockery, the casual cruelty. A man who'd been playing guitar for kids in the convoy crash was stripped of his shoes, thrown into a cell and told, "This isn't a festival anymore, hippie. This is real life." But even in those holding cells, people sang. Someone found a bire and scratched "We're Still Here" into a wall, and by dawn a few of the arrestees had formed a loose pact to tell the full story. Do not let it vanish. The fate of the kids. The fate of the children was not only a brutal crackdown on adult travellers, it deeply affected the children travelling with them. Many were caught in the chaos, witnessing police smashing vehicle windows, shouting orders and dragging adults from their homes on wheels. Several accounts recalled children weeping in fear as riot police stormed buses. Some were reportedly separated from parents during the arrests and held at different locations. In the aftermath, social services became involved in several counties. A few families faced temporary loss of custody while checks were made. Authorities framed their concerns around child welfare, but many in the community saw this as a punitive extension of state violence. In some cases, mothers and fathers were released from custody only to find their children placed in short-term care. Despite this trauma, the Traveller Network rapidly mobilised. Mutual aid efforts ensured children were looked after by others in the community. Activists raised funds for legal defence and child welfare advocacy. Over time, many families regrouped, but some never returned to the life on the road. The event cemented a growing fear that the state would use child protection as a weapon against itinerant life. Years later, some of these children would speak out at traveller gatherings and zines, describing the beanfield as a moment when their innocence was forcibly interrupted, also a moment that made them fiercely protective of freedom, family and the right to live differently. Years later, one of the grandchildren was in school attending a police talk. As the officer finished, the girl raised her hand and asked, "Do you smash buses?" Even the pets were not spared. The fate of the dogs following the Battle of the Beanfield is one of the more quietly tragic and underdocumented aspects of the event, but it is not forgotten by those who were there. During the raid, many dogs were left behind in vehicles as their owners were dragged away or arrested. Others were running loose in panic, trying to follow vehicles or people as police swarmed the field. Few were reportedly kicked, struck with batons or trampled in the chaos. Some dogs were captured by police and handed over to local dog wardens, kennels or animal control services. Others were allegedly taken by officers and either abandoned nearby or, in the worst cases, reported destroyed, though these specific claims have been difficult to verify due to the lack of records and the climate of fear and confusion at the time. There were accounts of convoy members returning to the fields later to try and recover their animals. Some were found wandering the area, others never seen again. Travellers and journalists who returned to the site later found dog bowls, chewed leashes and animal bedding still in the field. A child's note pinned to a fence near a burnt-out van said, "If you see our dog Ruby, please bring her back." Some dogs stayed near the site, reportedly refusing to leave the last place they saw her humans. A few were picked up by locals sympathetic to travellers and fostered or adopted out, but many convoy members never learned what happened to their animals. For many, the loss of their dogs became a deep wound, not just practical but emotional. These animals were family, guardians, travelling companions, warmth in a cold van, and ears in the night. The way they were treated, all forgotten, became part of the broader sense of dehumanisation and erasure that marked the Beanfield. As one traveller put it, they took everything. They even took the bloody dogs. Immediately after the battle, official statements painted the operation as a necessary and proportionate response to law-breaking squatters and would-be trespassers. Early press coverage, especially in the right-wing tabloids, echoed this narrative. Rampaging convoy brought to heel. Stonehenge saved from hippie takeover.